Hello and welcome to episode 261 of bookcareers.com live. As you may have already seen online, August is the 26th anniversary, yes, 26 years of bookcareers.com, and we're celebrating by giving our website a complete makeover. If you haven't already seen it, do take a look. We've made it much easier to book appointments and access our extensive resources. We're also planning a number of future events, including our presence at the Frankfurt Book Fair in October. So today, our guest is Erin Cox, the US Publicist for Frankfurter Buchmesse, about the importance of the book fair in every publisher's calendar. Welcome, Erin, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
It's great to have you. Now, why is everyone talking about Frankfurt?
I think it's because we have spent 70 plus years building Frankfurt as the center of the international publishing industry. It's a calendar event every year to bring publishers and service providers from around the world to Frankfurt to talk about, not only to sell rights and do all of those sort of business transactions, but to talk about the challenges that we have as a global industry, whether it's technology or finding the new generation of readers and some of those things. But that's really where we sort of try to bring together all of the experts from across the industry together to deal with some of these challenges that we have. Yeah.
It's great. Now, who would you say the Frankfurt Book Fair is aimed at, and what is the purpose of the book fair?
I mean, I think primarily we think of ourselves as sort of a rights and or sort of information idea fair. So it sort of started a little bit more about focusing on rights, and so it'd be bringing publishers together to sell translation rights to other publishers around the world for their content and to be able to share, or for their books, to be able to share those ideas to new readers in other languages. But I think it's expanded over the last, I don't know, 30, 40 years to be really a place where we talk about some of those larger issues that we have as an industry and find some solutions. So I think, a lot of publishers tend to send their editors and their rights people. Literary agents come to sell rights to foreign publishers. But we also have quite a lot of service providers, whether it's distribution, production, technology services, all of those things, sort of helping in and around the industry. But we also see a lot of political speakers. So the United Nations comes and talks about some of their initiatives. The International Publishers Association comes and talks about some of their initiatives. So it's really everything, I would say, everything in and around sharing ideas in the world. We're sort of expanding into all of those areas.
Now, I remember from days of old when there were always big deals from publishers conducted, that it was always like the big news, major
Yes.
signings, major news coming from Frankfurt. Are the big deals still happening today? And what sort of deals are being conducted?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think we always see that sort of big fiction deal where, somebody, it's the big hot deal, and people are making the deals at the Hof, which for those of you who aren't familiar, the Hof is the hotel where in the lobby, late night, everybody does these sort of late night fun deals at the Hof. But I think, yes, we still do very much see that. Sometimes we're also seeing deals leading up to Frankfurt. So you sort of agents or publishers come in with a few deals under their belt, and then they lock in 10 or 15 more translation deals around the world. So we're still seeing that energy and that excitement. There's a lot of buzz in the Literary Agent Center, the LitAg as we call it. So you hear a lot of buzz, a lot of excitement about that, and people reporting. And the trade publications do a great job of reporting those great deals. So in the U.S., we have Publishers Weekly, and they partner with Book Brunch on their their show daily, where they report some of these deals, and then the bookseller, of course, in the UK also does a great deal of reporting on those. So it's fun. It's fun to watch and see what's been happening both on the fairgrounds and in the late night deals at the Hof.
Yeah, you mentioned the Hof, and I mean, I
Yes.
would say, as somebody that goes to Frankfurt, is usually when I go to Frankfurt, I'm the opposite of a rights person. So, a
Yes.
rights person has their diary packed full of back-to-back appointments,
Yes.
whereas when I go to Frankfurt, most of my day has a scattering of appointments, and most of my business is actually done in the bar after the show and at the parties at the end of the day. So
Yeah.
let's talk a bit more about the social element of the fair and the seminars that are coming up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think what the magic of Frankfurt is the serendipity of those moments, right? So there are people from all over the world, some of whom know each other. You know, we all come in with some meetings on our in our diaries, and we all see friends and colleagues and partners in business. But we also are waiting in line for a drink at the bar and drum up a conversation with somebody and realize, oh, we might have some business in common, or we might be able to, oh, I was just talking to somebody, I can connect you to this other person. And that's so much of the serendipity of Frankfurt. And I think one of the things that we talk about for newcomers is sort of be open to some of that serendipity, because that's the excitement that you find there. Is, when I first came, I started my career in book publicity in the US, and so there wasn't necessarily, for a publisher, and so there wasn't really an opportunity for me to come to Frankfurt. But when I came for my first Frankfurt 16 years ago, it was one of those moments where I was in a room full of not very many people I knew, but I was so open to the conversation and I learned so much. I built this network. It's such an exciting part of it. And I think that's something that's sort of magical in this particular environment. In terms of seminars, we have a lot of great stage programs. So we have the Frankfurt Studio. We also have the international stage. We have the Publishing Perspectives Forum. And it's a lot of, talking about some of the issues that we have throughout the industry, and also highlighting some of the great work that we're doing. Technology changes, artificial intelligence, obviously the rise of audio, all of these great programs. And the Frankfurt Rights meeting is also a really important part of our business, which happens on Tuesday.
Yeah, we
Yeah,
have book careers. We've got a seminar running on the Wednesday morning at the
there you go.
start of the innovation stage
Yes,
about future-proofing your publishing skills. And we're also, for the first time ever, we've got a mini careers clinic in Frankfurt where I'll be seeing publishing professionals for one-to-one on the Friday. There'll be more details coming out from that from Book Careers nearer the time.
fantastic.
Now, we're going on to publishing jobs of the future. We're having an ongoing discussion. Are you able in your role to see any changes in roles in publishing? That might be jobs disappearing and new jobs emerging. What does the view look like from wherever you are, Erin?
Sure, yeah. In addition to my work at the book fair, I do teach at a couple of publishing programs. So I teach at Pace University in their Masters in Publishing, and I teach at the Denver Publishing Institute. I teach the Marketing Week, and so I really have a clear view of young people who are entering into the industry and the struggle that they have to find jobs. When I started 26 years ago, yes, there was still a lot of competition, but it was a different kind of competition. It wasn't the huge influx of people that we have today. So I think for those entry level jobs, it's particularly in publishing houses, it's much more challenging to get those roles. And I think also with technology sort of taking away some of those, I wouldn't say taking away some of those entry level roles, but changing them dramatically. I think that has made a difference in what kind of roles are actually available. But I think have been some benefits, and this is something that I do in my other work, which is encourage people to look at other different, you don't have to go and work for a publishing house. There are lots of of publishing jobs. And there are lots of literary arts jobs as well that are sort of publishing adjacent, if not working at a publisher. So I try and encourage them to look at all of those organizations. There are literary nonprofits, or like Penn is a great example, or I work for a literary nonprofit, House of Speakeasy, where you're working with writers, you're working on events that are tied to publishing or writing, and it still is a great way to be involved in the industry. So I think it's broadening the kind of jobs. When I first started, it was sort of like you wanted to be an editor or a publicist, and that was it. And now it's people are interested in rights, or they're interested in, digital marketing and things like that. So there are lots of other roles that we're seeing getting some attention, getting some interest, and things like that. What are you seeing on your side?
Um, I'm seeing a lot of the jobs aren't going to disappear. There's going to be
Mm,
actually few jobs that actually disappear, but what will be changing in those jobs will be the work you actually do.
mm,
In a bit of a way, as though an entry level role when I started in publishing was as a set department secretary.
mm,
And those roles don't exist anymore. Those jobs are now department assistants. And I
right.
just think that those department assistants roles will still be in existence, but some of the work they'll be doing will hopefully be more creative and less admin.
Yeah.
And I think there'll be more chance to be intuitive, entrepreneurial, and to progress from an entry level position than perhaps there is at the moment. So in that way, I think it could be a very, very exciting time for people.
I think you're absolutely right. Yeah, my students often are concerned about how AI is going to take their jobs, and I said exactly what you said. I said I think actually, those entry level jobs were a lot of like data entry, or you're processing paperwork. Some of that stuff is going to be done by technology. You don't have to do that. You can be more creative and actually develop those skills that you'll need later on in this kind of role. So I think it's actually better for you. So good.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you, as the expert, I'm saying things, but you are confirming that as the expert. So
It's really interesting because I'm having so many conversations, and I've written an article for a bookseller. I don't know if it's out
mm,
because we're recording this in July. I don't know if it's going to be out by the time this episode's out, but I've written an article in the book for the bookseller about how entry level publishing jobs are changing. And now let's talk about there's lots of people here thinking, I don't get sent to go to the
yeah,
bookmesse, I don't get the opportunity, it's not part of my job. But I know in recent years that you've worked very hard to give an offering for people who can't actually physically be in Frankfurt, probably as a result of the pandemic. But
hmm
now, after post-pandemic, there still seems to be lots of opportunities for people who can't go to participate. So, what opportunities are there to participate if you're not present?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, coming out of the pandemic was really, I mean, during the pandemic, we did an entire book fair virtually,
Mhm.
which was really great, and it was a great way for us to be able to engage with people who maybe never would have come, who actually got a lot out of what we can provide. So we continue to do that. So we have a virtual The Hoff, which is as part education, part social. So these are, we have them, I think 4 to 6 times a year. My colleagues will be mad that I don't know the exact number, but I think we 4 to 6 a year, but regularly. And it's about bringing people together around a particular topic. So we usually have some experts speaking on a particular subject, but then there's also networking opportunities. People get shuttled into rooms in Zoom and be able to interact with each other, and then shuttled in, sort of brought back to the group and then shuttled into new review group. So it gives people an opportunity to meet other people that they wouldn't ordinarily meet. And it's really great, and it's hosted by our friend Felix Zeitner. And so he makes it a really fun event, and it's great and really entertaining. We also have master classes led by experts, again, on a particular subject, so you can sort of find what works for you and your business, and watch those online. And then the Frankfurt Rights meeting does have a portion that's virtual. So if you are a rights professional, or an editor, it's a great opportunity to be able to tap into some of those ideas. So those are sort of our three key offerings. But then there are other things that we do throughout the year, and of course, you can tap into anything that we have on our YouTube channel. You can see past programs and things like that. It's always really fun to watch some of those videos, even if they're a little bit older.
But the quality, I must say to anybody listening, the quality, I've listened to some of the Hof meetings and the masterclasses and participated, and the quality of the conversation is extraordinary. It's exceptional, really. It's really an absolute pleasure. I would say that it's never time wasted. Like some online seminars, it's never time wasted. It's always they get to the point, to
Yes.
the discussion, and
Yeah.
there are always learning outcomes, which from my perspective is fantastic for anybody who's listening in.
Good.
Now, is
Thank you.
there anything else you want to add that you'd like our audience to know?
I think the thing that, having not attended Frankfurt in the early part of my career, so for 10 years I worked in book publicity, and then I worked for the New Yorker magazine selling advertising, and then I started working with the book fair, and I came for the first time. The thing that I am sort of dazzled by, and I think anybody who ever attends for the first time, is how big it is. Having 230,000 people attend, it's such a huge operation. And if you've been to other sort of book events, the London Book Fair or Book Expo America, some of those you might say, oh, it's the same. It is not the same at all. It's such a huge, huge, huge book fair, and there's so much going on. And I think we all sort of, depending on our jobs, stick to some of those tracks. So I was telling a friend who is a publisher in the US, about the Guest of Honor Pavilion. And he said, what are you talking about? And he said, I know that they're guests of honors, of course, there's a Guest of Honor country every year that we work with, and we promote their literature and their culture, but they have a huge pavilion that they design and feature programming stuff. And he had never been, because that wasn't a part of his business. So I took him over there, and he was like, I had no idea this was here. This is so amazing. And I think that's some of the fun of it, is that you can stick to your track of, your meetings and doing things that are good for your business. But if you want to break out and see other sides, there's a lot to offer. So I think that's really sort of the fun of it. And I always encourage people to, if you have just an hour some point in your day, maybe later in the week after you've had all of your business, go and explore Hall 3 where the German publishers are, or go to the Guest of Honor Pavilion, or go walk around the Agora, which is the big open air area in the center, because you'll see things that you just weren't anticipating. And it's fun, it's interesting. And I think it gives us a little bit of a, sort of gets the creativity of our job going. I think we sort of get focused on the facts or the deals or whatever it is that we're doing, and you sort of lose touch sometimes with why we got into this industry. And you need that sort of, that excitement and creativity coming back in other ways. So
You do. And just for anybody listening that wants to have a look at how big Frankfurt actually is, some of the old TikToks I did last year from the book fair are still on the Book Careers TikTok account. So do have a look. I mean, I always describe the Buchmesse as being about 10 times the size of London. And I've had people saying, I've been to London Book Fair and it's so big. Honestly, you have not seen anything until you've been to Frankfurt. And I love the Guest of Honor pavilions, because, and I know this year your Guest of Honor is the Philippines.
yes.
And for most people, I'd say that they're very, particularly from the UK, they may be quite closeted in their own little tunnel vision area of publishing. And when you go through the international pavilions, your eyes are just opened. It's even if you've been selling rights, your eyes are just opened to all the possibilities. But also, it's really interesting to see the cultural differences in publishing just by the covers of the books and the way that they're displayed. And it's like we're going on a world tour in
Yep,
one exhibition, which is so much fun. Now,
definitely.
Erin, as part of this podcast, we've been told we don't talk enough about books. So I'm asking
Okay,
all our guests currently, what book are you reading at the moment? And it'd be really interesting because you're US based to see what book is fits out here, if it's going to be it's forthcoming here. What book are you actually reading at the moment?
sure. I'm reading My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones. So I'm a big horror movie fan. And Stephen Graham Jones, this is the first in a trilogy. He's a horror writer. It's the first in a trilogy, and it's fun because the book is it's the main character is a teenage girl, a young woman, and she is obsessed with slasher films, so horror movies, but a particular kind of horror movie, slasher films. So, as somebody who has watched all these films, she refers to all of these characters and horror movie tropes and things like that. So, it's incredibly fun for me to read and sort of a great summer read for me. So, a little bit lighter, well, darker but lighter, but than some of the other things that I read for work and for other purposes. So it's been a fun engaging read for the summer.
That's actually I can't watch horror films. I have anything that has anything suspenseful in now just like trips my anxiety. It's like I can't watch this, even if I know everybody's going to survive at the end. I can't watch
Yeah,
this. But even to me, that book sounds absolutely fascinating. So thank
good.
you for sharing that. And thank you
Absolutely.
so much for your time today. It's been fascinating.
Thank you for having me.
If you're looking for a job in book publishing, please subscribe to this channel and visit bookcareers.com for further resources, including how to access one-to-one career guidance. And don't forget to buy the book, How to Job Search in Book Publishing, The Ultimate Insider's Guide. May you all be doing a job you love and being paid the salary that you so richly deserve.